Just that there can definitely be profit in areas that you don't really expect, that aren't the major, Dallas, South Florida, that there's still a lot of money to be made outside of, the major hubs, city hubs.
Welcome. You're listening to the Apartment Investing Show. This is where you'll learn how to start or scale your apartment investing career. Your host, Adam Adams, continues to support anti-human trafficking causes around the world. Adam and his guests will show you how to create residual income by investing in apartment communities. Now, here's your host, Adam AAA Adams.
And we're back with the Apartment Investing Show, and I'm thrilled and excited because something that gets overlooked, something that oftentimes just completely gets missed. People talk about, I need to find deals. How do I find deals? How do I get off-market deals? How do I talk to brokers? And then they talk about how do they raise money? How do they raise the money from passive investors? And then they get this deal, and they were able to accomplish those two goals, and then they completely neglect the thing that actually makes money. So now, all of a sudden, you lose all this money for your investors, and we're going to solve that because we have Paige Feddersohn, who is a very experienced. Hey, Paige, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Who's a very experienced HOA asset manager. And so we're going to get into her story, talk a little bit about what she is seeing, we're going to talk about the 5 things that you can do to make millions of dollars with your properties. And let's tell you a little bit more about Paige. Paige Feddersohn has been investing in real estate, since 2012. She bought her very first investment when she was just 20. Amazing. Like all these other people saying, I'm 21, I can't get involved. And we proved that wrong already. So she got started when she was just 20. She was able to successfully double her money in just the first few years. And currently she works as an asset manager for a multi-billion-dollar firm. How much do they have under management? What's the AUM?
Billions.
Love it.
We own them all outright too.
Amazing. So no loans?
Well, I mean, not outright. I mean, we don't have investors.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. I was thinking, really? That's insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's still awesome. No investors. So I want to start here, Paige. Take me back when you were 20 years old. Like, there's some listeners that are also 20 or even 30, and they're still thinking, I'm too young. I'm not ready yet. So what helped you to overcome your fears? What were the fears, and what helped you overcome them?
I think learning more about real estate. It was a single family house that I bought not too far outside of my hometown. Getting push from my family, you're throwing your rent money away every month, really learning about how mortgages work and stuff like that and how to build equity. So, and knowing that obviously 2012 was a pretty low market for real estate. And I knew I had a little bit of time, a little window of opportunity, and I just decided to just go for it. I mean, people thought I was crazy. I was only 20 years old, but I just did it and I just made it work. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the property. Could you go into a little bit more detail about the property, where it was, how big it was, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so it was in San Bernardino County. I'm from LA, so a little bit out of there. It was a 3-story condo. Bought it for $180, sold it off market to my tenant for $340, $360. The broker was a friend of mine, and he waived his fees for me.
Wow.
I got very lucky. Yeah.
Did you ever live in it, or was it a rental from day one? Okay.
I lived in it. So I had the roommate thing that I rented out.
Nice.
That was kind of interesting because I was living with a tenant. Sometimes it was a friend. Sometimes I found
okay. So you moved in,
Mm-hmm.
you house hacked, you got somebody else to help you pay your mortgage. And was that the person you sold it to?
No, that it was the last tenant. I had already moved out, and then I rented out the entire condo to them.
How many rooms was it? The unit?
It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, but there was like a 3rd-story loft on top. So the air and heat bill was so high because it was so tall. It would just disperse through anywhere except for where I wanted the air. So don't buy 3-story. But
oh wow. Okay, when you said it was a 3-story condo, I'll tell you what I thought, what I was thinking, that the condo building had 3 stories and you just had one of the stories.
I had all
Okay.
3.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
And you said you bought it for about 180, I think, and then you sold it for about 360,
340,
340.
320, I think. But then with the rental income that I made while I had it
Yeah.
also. So
And how many years did you have that property?
I sold it in 2016, I think. So 3 or 4
2016.
years. Maybe
Okay.
maybe 17.
And what made you decide to house hack? Had you heard about that before, or did you just brilliantly come
Mm-mm.
up with this on your own?
Well, I mean, I didn't need all this space as just a 20-year-old. I just thought it was way too much. I have all this extra space. I might as well make more money with it. I was working as a fitness trainer at the time and, just kind of supplement my income a little bit.
That's really cool. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but today you're an asset manager, and
Mm-hmm.
you did say that you sold all your properties right before coronavirus.
I
What I
did.
thought that was interesting. If you want to talk about it.
Yeah, it was honestly by chance. I was working on getting one sold for a long time, and it was just taking a really long time. And we happened to close escrow maybe a week before the California stay-at-home order went into place. The other one I sold just a couple months before, like February maybe.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so let's get into asset management. That's something that you are doing now.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're the asset manager for this multi-billion-dollar firm. They own it all, not outright, but they don't have a bunch of past
Mhm.
investors. Like when I close on
Mhm.
stuff, I might
Mhm.
bring 50 investors into the same project.
Mhm.
Um, how long have you been doing that?
I started actually this year.
Okay, what were you doing before that?
I was working as a fitness trainer and getting a couple of my rentals a little bit, working on getting them sold also.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so what was the factor that made you decide asset management is my jam?
I felt like fitness and real estate didn't really have anything in common. I felt like all this that I was learning in fitness, I wasn't able to translate into real estate. I found that fitness was kind of getting in the way of real estate. And I just wanted to be able to really dive into real estate, learn more, something that I definitely love and am definitely passionate about. So
Awesome.
I had to choose.
That makes
So.
sense. I remember doing almost the same exact thing. I decided to go and work for somebody who owned a bunch of multifamily, and I
Mm-hmm.
became the asset manager for the multifamily. And the
Mm-hmm.
main reason why is because I felt like if I was engrossed in this, if I lived this, if I breathed it, if I had
Mm-hmm.
a mentor who was paying me instead of me paying him, that I'd be able to really go to the next level. So
Mm-hmm.
with you, just kind of transitioning to the 5 things that we promised the listener, there's going to be 5 things that make you millions of dollars with asset management.
Mm-hmm.
What are those 5 things, Paige?
All right. So first one, submeter your properties and implement a RUBS system. Second one is implement marketing agreements with cable companies. This can be a one-time flat fee, 15,000 to 90,000. I've seen for what people are paying. It's a contract most of the time. Pay close attention to budget variances every month. Stay on it. Stay in communication with your team. What's going on with this large variance? Staying in communication and staying diligent. Rebid vendor contracts every year, as well as insurance policies. Don't continue going to the same insurance broker because you have a great relationship and it's your aunt, mom, sister's best friend. No, you need to keep your vendors on your toes, keep your insurance brokers on their toes, know that you're always shopping, always staying competitive, and identifying inefficiencies in, $1 million budgets over time. They definitely add up, and just, again, yeah, staying vigilant.
Okay, so submetering, um, market agreements with the cable companies and such,
Mm-hmm.
the variances in the budget, the
Mm-hmm.
vendor contracts, and the 5th
Mm-hmm.
one is the inefficiencies in multi-million-dollar budgets. Let's start at the top. Let's start at sub-metering and really teach the listener how, when they're an asset manager, what exactly they need to do to be able to make the most amount of money when they do this.
Yeah, so I work with a lot of HOAs, so it's a little bit different than apartments. When we implement a sub-meter, it's not only to implement a RUBS ratio, because we already have the RUBS system built in, but it's also to reduce HOA expenses. And then ideally the homeowner, gets to profit from the savings. So we have a lot of broken condo deals. There's 30 HOAs in my portfolio. So we have so many units that it makes it beneficial for us. So you basically contact sub-meter companies, get bids, figure out your current sub-meter system, compare them for the per unit cost, what kind of system they have. Another big thing is how they collect their delinquencies, what kind of recourse you guys have in the event that a homeowner doesn't pay for their water bill. And yeah.
Okay. So with the 8,000 units, are those the units that you guys are managing?
Yes. So those are the total. Well, we have about 4,000 of them. So we have about half. Okay.
And with those 4 or 8,000, you reach out. I want to make sure that I completely understand, because if I understand, the listener will, because I'm always slower than the listener. That's just the truth about it. So we're going to sub-meter the units individually, and that's going to help us save money. When you guys were sub-metering, who do you call specifically? Do you call the electric company, or?
So we are sub-metering water and sewer.
Sub-meter, water, and sewer. And
yes.
So what you're basically saying is this is just RUBS. Is this the main thing? Is like, we're paying this big price every month for all of our units, and what we're going to do is bill it back to the tenant or the resident, and that's the money saver. Is that true?
So that's implementing the RUBS.
Okay.
The RUBS system.
These are different.
We already have that. So we're going based off of reducage in consumption. That is where we want to save the money, because it's hard to tell if there's a leak in a unit. If you have 800 units, where's the leak coming from? You're not going to know. It's really hard to figure that out. Similarly, people tend to be a little bit more wasteful with their water when they know that they're paying a flat fee. It doesn't matter how much they use. So since it's an HOA, the HOA has to pay for that. And we have so many units in the HOA that it has a decent effect on our budget.
Okay. So the sub-metering adds more accountability to the resident, which in turn lets you know if there's a whole bunch of water being used in unit A, then versus, B through Z. Now all of a sudden you either know we've got a leak, or these guys are taking too many baths, something like that. Okay.
And it's
makes
hard to
complete
tell.
Sense. Awesome. I love it. And so how much money were you able to save with your units?
We're looking at about 15 to 20%.
15 to 20%
reduction in consumption.
Reduction. Okay. So about 15 to 20%. And now I'm thinking about how much does that translate to money? So in 1 month, for instance, are you saving 10,000, 100,000, million? What, like every month, about what do you think your company saves because you did that?
About 15% of our water bill. So
do you know the total water bill though?
I couldn't give exact numbers.
Okay.
Even if,
all right. Well, let's just
pretend.
Over each HOA. Well, 8,000 units is a ton. So let's just say it's 300 per unit per month. It's a lot, right? So I'm just going to say if we save $30 per unit, just as let's say $45 per unit multiplied by, let's just say we have 200 units. We don't have 8,000 yet. Paige has 8,000. We have 200. $9,000 a month multiplied by the whole year, $100,000. If you only have 200 units, you save 100 grand. Automatically divide that by a cap rate of, let's just say you're in a 6 cap market. That's pretty average right here, right now. You've made your one property, your 200 unit property, $1.8 million by submetering. All right, number 2, implement market agreements from cable companies. Tell us how to do that and how much money it saves.
All right. So this one's really cool. I like this idea. It's an exclusive marketing agreement between cable companies. So right now we're looking at Cox. They pay a one-time door fee of anywhere from $15,000 up to $90,000 just for signing a contract. The company already has to be serviced in that area. If they aren't, they might have to build some stuff and install some stuff. Very technical terms there. So it's really cool just by signing a contract. And so what that does is that allows that specific cable company to only market to your residents.
All right. So if when they sign a check for 15 to 90,000, what are the factors? Is it how large your unit, how many units you have? Like they do a certain amount per unit, or is there some other factor that I'm unaware of that makes them decide whether they're going to give you 15K or 90K?
Yes. So there's also the amount of penetration that they're able to get their residents to sign up for your service. So it's a flat fee, but then it can get a little bit higher the more that people obviously use Cox as an example for their cable. Okay, so or internet.
You had one where perhaps with that company they gave you a $90,000 check. So 2 questions about the $90,000 check. 1, tell me more about the property that they wrote that check on, and 2, is that 90,000 only on the first day? Is it once a year? How long is the contract, and what happens when it ends? So that's a lot of questions, but number 1, tell me more about the property.
Okay, that one was one of our bigger HOAs in the Las Vegas area, and it's a one-time fee.
And how long is the contract?
It varies. I mean, 5 years, 7 years.
Okay. So do you think at the end of 5 or 7 years, you might be able to have them give you another check?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. All right. Totally understand that one. Makes complete sense. The third one is to pay close attention to variances in the budget. What do you mean by that, and what does it do for you?
Yeah, so every month, staying diligent on going through the profit and loss statement, and you have a budget and making sure that people are staying in line with it. And if they're not, stay in communication with your team. What's going on here? Can you explain this to me? Do you foresee this happening again in the future? How can we fix it? And if it's not something that can be fixed between now and budget season, I'm going to take that into account when we do our next year's budget and make sure that that's accounted for, because we don't want to have these large variances that don't make sense. So,
okay, makes complete sense. When you've seen when there is something that's big that comes up on the variances, can you give me an example of one of the things that showed up on one of the properties that was able to save you money because you paid close attention to it?
Yeah, I mean, security is a huge one. Personnel expenses. Also implementing virtual guards instead of having on-site security. Implementing virtual guards could be really cost effective. So, one HOA might have security doing overtime every month and nobody's really paying attention to it because not a lot of people are at the property at night. So, telling them you need to get security out, when they're scheduled, or get rid of security and implement virtual guards also.
Tell me more about how you get a virtual guard. It sounds like it would be a bunch of cameras and somebody or a team that sits in front of, all the screens and pushes a button or does a flag if something's kind of out of the ordinary. Is that part true?
Mm-hmm.
And so what would happen with a virtual guard? Like, is it, sorry to be so naive, but if somebody's on there breaking in, is the only way that they protect the property by immediately calling the police? Because it doesn't seem like they could themselves stop anything.
Yeah. So they can talk to people. There's speakers and stuff, and they tell them, you need to leave. And I think a lot of times people get completely freaked out because they had no idea. They might see a camera, but they're not expecting anyone to yell at them. And they don't know where the voice is coming from, too.
That is so cool. That's so cool. I think that would do a couple of things. Like, not only would it make all of the residents feel much safer and at ease because this is like live and in person and people are coming on, but also because instead of having somebody get paid to actually be on site, you might be able to have one person that manages multiple properties that they could never drive between them. And so you're probably saving a ton of money and making the residents feel more safe. I love that. That was go ahead.
No, there is kind of a high upfront cost because you need to implement all of this equipment. But after time, you start to see the reductions.
Yeah, good stuff. And which is totally fine. If we know we're investors and we know that we're going to, switch out all of the toilets and the shower heads, and all of a sudden we're going to be saving a ton of water, it costs a lot up front, but it's worth it in the end. And same thing with different upgrades with the laundry, with the dog parks, it costs up front. And installing all the cameras. I think we understand it'll cost us something, but overall we're going to be saving every month. And when we base it on a cap rate, when we were just talking about, submetering properties just on a 200 unit, we can increase the value of the property by 1.8 million on just a 200 unit. Imagine if we had 8,000 units that we were managing. What, as an asset manager, imagine what kind of money we would be saving every year. Amazing. Okay, so that was just number 3, and I've already learned a ton, and I think the listeners excited as well. Number 4, you have for rebidding vendor contracts every single year. Why would you do that? What does it do?
Keeps them competitive, keeps them on their toes. Kind of same thing with insurance also. A lot of people go to insurance brokers every year. They just automatically renew the premium, and they get kind of comfortable. You know what I mean? So we want to keep them on their toes, let them know that we're looking and we're comparing you to other companies every year. So just because you've established a relationship with you, we love you, thank you for your service, but we want to make sure that your prices are competitive.
Good stuff. Number 5, you have identifying inefficiencies in the multi-million-dollar budgets. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so kind of the same thing with a couple others that I was talking about, making sure that, the variances are very tight, making sure that we're not seeing a lot of uptick in like the personnel, because since it's an HOA, we have HOA property management companies we work with, and making sure that, their janitorial expense might be $50,000 a year, making sure that they are charging us $50,000 a year for that and not upticking it for us as well.
So I'm curious on that. It's not normal for the property management company to add like overhead and profit to their expenses, like with the 50,000 that you mentioned. Is it normal for a HOA property management company to maybe add 10% for overhead, 10% for profit, or even like just multiply the expense by 1.5 before they give it to you?
It depends on the company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're working with companies that are willing to not put those, not make a profit on their expense.
I mean, we'd at least like to try to make sure that they're
Okay.
not upselling us.
Got it. Got it.
Mhm.
So a lot of good stuff. So I do have another question though that
Yes.
wasn't one of these five, and we'll probably wrap it up after that. But you've been involved with the asset management of this
Mhm.
huge giant company since this year, since about a
Mhm.
year or maybe even a little less,
Yeah.
and which is the best time for me to ask you this question. A much better time than if you'd been involved in for 30 years, because you've been involved with real estate since 2012. You've learned a ton over the time, but in the very
Mhm.
beginning, the stories were a lot easier to come by. And same
Mhm.
with me. I've been doing real estate for 15 years, and in the beginning, I was like, "Holy cow, I learned this! Holy cow, I learned this!" Now sometimes I forget because we're in it so long.
Mhm.
So what I want to understand as an asset manager who's been in the game for 6 to 12 months, take us and show us the things that you've learned that you never would have expected, that are outside of these five things that help us make a lot of money, millions of
Mhm.
dollars with our assets. And I even showed 1.8 million just from the first one on a very small property. But take us now, since I believe you have an easy time to be able to do this.
Mhm.
What did you not expect to happen at all?
Hmm. Oh man, that's a hard question. What did I learn that I did not expect at all? Um, just that there can definitely be profit in areas that you don't really expect, that aren't the major, Dallas, South Florida, that there's still a lot of money to be made outside of, the major hubs, city hubs.
That's great. What are there one or two cities that you've noticed that you guys are maybe making money in that you wouldn't have expected specifically?
Washington,
Oh wow,
areas in Washington, yeah,
cool,
because
cool.
they're so democratic, and I feel like it's it comes with less landlord friendly laws, definitely. But yeah, we've seen decent penetration there.
Awesome. Paige, this has been really good. I loved getting into, first off, your story when you were just 20 years old, jumping into the game before most of us ever thought of it, inspiring the listener to know even if they're 20, they can jump in, they can get this done.
Hmm.
The house hacking seemed to be such a great way. You
Hmm.
bought that 2 bed, 2 bath, 3-story condo, and you said, "Hey, look, I don't need this whole thing. I'm going to let somebody else pay my mortgage." And I thought it
Hmm.
was interesting that you sold it to one of your tenants. I thought
Hmm.
that was really interesting because there's a lot of people that I think would neglect that. They
Hmm.
say, "I want to sell," and the first move they make is they call a real estate agent. And they say, "I want you to put this on the market and find me a
Hmm.
buyer." And
Hmm.
so when you sold it to somebody who already lived there, I think that opens up our minds, especially with creativity, thinking outside the
Hmm.
box on being able to get
Hmm.
something done. And that was a win-win. Your
Hmm.
tenant loved living there, and now
Hmm.
they own it.
Hmm.
And then we talked a little bit about how you went from fitness into asset management, and then these
Hmm.
five things: submetering your properties and using RUBS, utility billing system, for anyone who doesn't know what it means, so that we can measure exactly how much water and sewer we're using and be able to charge that back to the right person and see where the problems are.
Hmm.
And we obviously, that alone saves millions of dollars. We should
Hmm.
charge for this podcast. We should be
We
like, "Hey, on
should.
this podcast, I'm sorry, you can't listen to it unless you pay $1 million because there's already a return." The second thing is the implementing the marketing agreements with cable companies, reaching out,
Hmm.
getting them to pay you 15 grand to $90,000 just to be exclusive, have the exclusive right to market their cable to your property.
Mhm.
The third one, paying close attention to the variances in the budget. I had something on the tip of my mind that was a huge takeaway for the variances. I forgot it. I should have written it down. That's totally
Virtual
fine.
guards.
Yes,
Virtual guards?
yes, awesome. The virtual guards. And then you rebid the vendor contracts every single year.
Mhm.
Some people, at least us, we don't do that. Well, we haven't done that in the past. Now we are because of this. And that keeps them competitive. That keeps them honest. That
Mhm.
keeps them being able to say, well, I don't want to lose the contract. I got to come down. Which,
Mhm.
if you don't do it, they're like, well, I've already got the contract. I can go up. So really, really good stuff.
Mhm.
Identifying inefficiencies in multifamily, multi-million-dollar budgets. And then we talked about what you've learned, and your takeaway was awesome, that there's a lot of different types of markets that we can make money in, including
Mhm.
Washington, where a lot of times as landlords, we understand that it's, the more Republican type states, they
Mhm.
have laws that help landlords be able to make more money. And then in general, a lot of the Democratic states make it more difficult for the
Mhm.
landlords to make money. And you pointed out that you found that in Washington, you guys are killing it. And you never would have expected that.
Mhm.
Is there any other parting advice, Paige, that you'd like to leave with the listener before I let you go?
If you're young and you don't know what you're doing, it's okay. Just keep learning, keep pushing through it. Even if you're older and you want to get into real estate, just follow your dreams. Don't stop, and you'll get through it. You'll get there, definitely.
Really good stuff. I appreciate you coming on and saving us millions of dollars. I'm going to let you go, but until next time,
Thanks,
think
Adam.
outside the box. As a reminder, any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are for accredited investors only. And if you're interested in working with me and my team, then go to realbluespruce.com and click Get on the List. It's that simple. Just click Get on the List to start passively investing. This has been an episode of the Apartment Investing Show with me, Adam Adams. All rights are reserved. And if you haven't done so already, then make sure that you absolutely smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next episode.